I will turn our attention to the matchup in South Beach. The Miami Hurricanes, number 7 in the country, take on Florida State. When you look at Florida State, they have won 2 straight in the series, picked up this victory last year in Tallahassee by 7 points. But I think hands down, Coach, Miami has the offensive advantage. They have the quarterback in Cam Ward. I just don't know what to expect out of Florida State, even though it's a rivalry game. I do, in fact, believe that Miami wins this ball game convincingly and covers the 21.5-point number.
I'm with you, and I hate to say it because of my dad being at Florida State so long, but they've got problems. They played horribly last week on offense. It was horrible to watch, and they have no answers to it. They can't score. Anybody's going to play Miami, you've got to keep the score going, and they can't score. And eventually, and I agree with you, Miami's going to win the game, and they're going to cover on this game, and I'd take them both because there's just too much offense. And FSU, if they had the answers, we would have seen it along the way. They'll have some pride, I'm sure, and they'll fight hard, but they're playing in Miami's backyard, and they're playing a very talented team. And remember, Miami would like to rub it in. This is an old rivalry. And Miami want to score as much as they can. So they'll be out there to prove to those recruits around Miami and South Florida that Miami's the place to go, not Florida State.
And that's why I think the 54.5 might be in play as well, because Miami, to your point, if they get up at, let's say, 28, 35 points, they'll throw caution to the wind. Why not win it by 50, just to your point? And you want to have that offensive continuity heading into week number 10.
Let me say this, so Miami's got to score all the points because no matter how high they go, the other team's not going to help too much with points. So I agree with you, but Miami's going to have to have a field day to get that over because I don't think Florida State's going to score much at all.
When you think about turnarounds, Coach, right, we've seen teams potentially make the college football playoff and back down. Look at Michigan this year, not as dominant as they were last year. But for a team that was 13-0 to potentially be 1-7, this has got to be one of the worst stories in college football in terms of year to year.
Well, it's all about the quarterback position. A quarterback touching the ball 50% of every game. This is the same problem Oklahoma offense has. They don't have a quarterback that can take their offense and score with it, and there are no ways to solve the problems.
We have 5 ranked versus ranked games this weekend, the most on a single Saturday so far in the 2024 college football season. And the best game is a top 15 tilt in College Station. Kyle Field, the setting for 14th ranked Texas A&M hosting number 8 LSU. The Aggies, who have been a favorite in all 7 games this year, laying 2.5 this weekend at home against the Bayou Bengals. DRS, let's start with that spread. In your estimation, is the correct side favored?
I do think so, because in college football, unlike professional sports now, we're always trying to gauge what home field advantage actually means. Because, yes, it does matter. Not necessarily from a fan perspective, but just being home in your environment, your sight lines, everything is comfortable there. But in college football, it really ramps up. You're not playing at, let's just say, an institution. What Saban would joke about Vanderbilt. Hey, everybody goes on the road in the SEC to Vanderbilt. It's home field advantage for the road team. That's not the case. And Texas A&M has one of the best home field advantages in football. So I do think that plays out. And also, this isn't one of those A&M teams that we maybe look back in the past we don't know how good they are or what they're doing in the SEC. They're 4-0 in the SEC. They've proven it here. Yeah. Same thing with LSU at 3-0. Let me ask you this question, too, because I do think that spread is appropriate from where it is, where Texas A&M is about a field goal favorite. I was entering into the season saying, okay, everybody can get 1 loss, but 2 losses, you're basically going to be out of it at that point. I'm not getting that vibe here late in the season, which I love. So for me, LSU, Texas A&M, I'm going to ask you this question. Is this an eliminator game if one of them loses? Because quite frankly, that means you only have 1 SEC loss. They're not out of the playoff picture, right? And maybe even still be favored to make a playoff spot?
Correct, DRS. I do not believe this is an eliminator game. One of the best things for LSU is how easy their schedule is this year as compared to many. Still Alabama on the docket. A&M has Texas to end out the year in a renewal of the Lone Star Showdown. All of that is still remaining. 3 losses, it makes it difficult based on your strength of resume. And these 2 teams right now have a couple of good wins. A&M beat Missouri. All right. LSU, of course, beating Ole Miss in its own home stadium a couple of weekends ago. Night game in Death Valley. So, no, not an eliminator game. and it would be the first conference loss for both of these teams. Similarities in their trajectories this year. Both lost the opening weekend of the year and a marquee top 25 tilt. LSU on that Sunday night in Sin City against USC. A&M, of course, at home as an ever so slight favorite against Notre Dame. The two teams have responded. They have not looked great every single week in their response. Connor Wigman still scares me a little bit as A&M's quarterback. And LSU has left a few things to be desired, but the defense really improving for the Tigers. It's why I give them a slight edge here despite the home field advantage in College Station. But DRS, enough of us. Despite his tardiness, we'll still give him the billing that he deserves.
Naughty.
That is Mark Zinno joining us here on this Thursday on the early line. Would you have to fix the hair, make sure everything was good? What's going on?
I'm not as naturally beautiful as you, Ben, on the inside of all
Sure.
that matter. So it does take a little bit longer for me to get my game together.
Listen, that felt like a shot that you were calling out my insides as though my emotions were the one slandering you here for you being a little bit tardy. Don't project onto me. Regardless, now our focus is college football. And Zinno, as always, a huge Saturday in the SEC. He's Mark Zinno. He's the mouth in the South. These are his SEC picks. Zinno, 5 ranked versus ranked top 25 tilts on Saturday, the most in a single day. All you 3 of them from the SEC. So let's get to it here. How did that look? Things look a little bit weird on your end when I was talking right there?
A little skip.
Got a little bit.
Yeah, looked like you were skipping through there.
Yeah, little. Okay, anyway. Zinno, let's get this segment going, huh? You heard our insight on A&M LSU. How do you break down the top 25 tilt in Kyle Field on Saturday night?
I'm going with LSU. I'll take the points. I think they win the game outright. To your point, the quarterback play for A&M has been a little bit suspect. It certainly raises a lot of questions about what this offense really can be. But, look, I was one of the people at LSU tabbed as an outside shot to win the SEC this year, and they've held up their end of the bargain. It is head-scratching when I go back to it now with some context. How the hell did you lose to USC? Like, honestly, I mean, that is not a good football team at this point in time. But, LSU continues to put out great wide receivers. That's where their edge is. They make Garrett Nussmeier's job very easy. And as good as the A&M defense is here and the job that has been done by Mike Elko over at A&M, I look at the spot here, and I think LSU, I give the nod to Brian Kelly as a game planner and a schemer. It's going to be tight. It's going to be fun and interesting, but I'll take LSU at the points. I still think they win the game outright.
Kind of crazy. I do think the dog of the week is going to be Wisconsin at home in Camp Randall against Penn State. And listen, Penn State coming off a bye, which is great. They also had to hold on there. Unbelievable, down 20-6 at the half to come back and beat USC in that last game before the break. But guess who they have on deck there, Ben? Ohio State is coming up next for Penn State. Camp Randall, not an easy place to go into and blow anybody out. Wisconsin's playing its best football. I'll take that home dog any day of the week there. Give me the points in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin is one of 8 programs around the country that competes in a conference that has a positive point differential of plus 75 or greater. The Badgers at plus 84 after absolutely routing in their last 3 games. Purdue, 52-6. Rutgers in a big way. I believe it was 42-7 at its final and 23-3 the win last week on the shores of Lake Michigan against Northwestern. Of those 8 programs, Joe, that has a plus 75 point differential or better, the Badgers are the only team with a conference loss, and they got beat by 3 scores by USC. It has been a huge turnaround. It is a huge spot inside Camp Randall tomorrow night for Luke Fickell to earn the best win of his 2 years as Wisconsin's head coach.
We'll turn our attention to the big one in Durham, coach. SMU, only 1 loss on the year, laying 11.5 to Manny Diaz and the Duke Blue Devils after that emotional victory over Florida State. Can Duke be live to knock off SMU on Saturday?
SMU with Jenkins at quarterback, Kevin Jenkins, I think he's one of the best unknown quarterbacks in the country. doing a great job now that he's starting. He did not start the season, but they moved to him very quickly, and they've been unbelievable. They play faster than anybody. And I think this is going to be about Kevin Jenkins against Manny Diaz, the defensive coordinator, head coach at Duke. He's a blitzer. He believes in a blitz attack and attacking that quarterback. And Jennings, give him time, and he'll throw. He moves the pocket well, so they're not going to be able to hit a pocket passer. He's a good dual threat quarterback, and I think it's going to be the quarterback versus the scheme of the defense, which is pressure, get to that quarterback.
Yeah, I lean to the defense as well of SMU in this matchup, even though they're on the road. I think they're a little bit more physical than the Duke offensive defensive line. So I do like SMU in the matchup. Lean to the under 48.5. We saw SMU dominate on the road against Stanford 40-10. Coach, when you look at both of these coaches, big picture, Rhett Lashley for SMU, Manny Diaz for Duke, any shot that they're both there in the same respective programs in 2025? Or do you think they jump for bigger pastures and bigger programs?
Yeah, I think Manny's probably going to be there for a year or two more, but I see Lashley moving up very quickly. He's at SMU, but SMU is very committed to building that program, getting the transfer portal, got the money behind the program, but he's probably going to be looked at for a bigger job. Manny, because of what happened at Miami, he's probably a few wins away from that.